more here. Okay, 57talk.com. Gary Cubetta back with you again. And with me today is Bull Miller. And Bull, famous in the Detroit Wrestling Wars, many years, Ohio. Where else,
Mainly
Bull?
Ohio, Gary.
Where else, Bull?
Excuse me?
Where else have you wrestled?
Oh, man, I've mainly wrestled in Ohio because I live in Columbus. But, I mean, yeah, Detroit, up and through there, West Virginia, a little bit in Tennessee, PA, just basically the surrounding areas.
And, of course, you were in the final match. We want to discuss that with Bobo Brazil, 1994. Take me back in time, Bull, and tell me what that was like, Bobo's final match in wrestling.
You know, Gary, man, I got to tell you, I grew up watching Bobo Brazil, and maybe modern fans really don't understand the significance of that guy. I mean, really, he was, to try to equate him to something current, he was pretty much like the Triple H at this time. Not so much in style or anything, but I'm just talking about in stature. So, I mean, it was a huge honor. I'd wrestled Bobo several times already. And honestly, I think he had retired maybe 2 years before. And Bobo was hurting at this stage. He had to be going up on 70. But I had hooked up with a local charity in Springfield, Ohio, and so we were just looking for someone, and they were kind of older, so they remembered Bobo. And I gave him a call up, not really thinking he would do anything because he had to be just short of 70 at the time.
So he's just short of 70. It's a local show.
Yes.
You need somebody to wrestle. And when you call Bobo, what's he say to you on the phone?
You know what? He was into it right off the bat, which I really didn't think he would be because, like I said, he's older and he hadn't wrestled in a while. But, yeah, he was all into it, especially I told him it was a charity deal. At that stage in his life, Bobo had two sons that wrestled as his sons, Bobo Juniors, and I think one of them was his actual real son and one of them wasn't. But the one that was his actual real son, Carl, I believe was his name was, Bobo had to get him on the show because he was living in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and it's probably like a 4-hour drive from Benton Harbor to Springfield, Ohio. So he had to get him on the show just so he could get someone who could drive him because his hips were so bad at that stage. I mean, he could barely walk for any period of time.
Did Bobo try and train for the match, or it was past the point of being able to train?
Oh, he wasn't training. I mean, I probably caught him on 4 weeks' notice, and I'm going to tell you how the match went here in a minute, but, yeah, there was no training for this.
So he couldn't train. He's pretty arthritic at the time, right?
He had something with his hips. I don't think he'd actually had a hip replacement, but it really prevented him from moving around too well. As I said, he couldn't drive all the way from Benton Harbor, a 4-hour drive, just because his hips was so bad that he couldn't spend that kind of time behind the wheel.
Oh, boy. So what happened the night of the match? He shows up?
Oh, yeah, Bobo always shows up. I could tell you all kinds of stories about times even before this last match. And Bobo's on the card. If he's booked, he's going to be there. But anyways, he shows up, and we're chatting. I haven't seen him in a couple of years anyways. And so I had really no idea how bad he was, physically speaking. So we're sitting in the back, and we kind of worked out this whole deal. We had given him, we was going to give him like some kind of lifetime achievement trophy or something like that. So I went out to the ring first, and I'm just, being the typical Bull Miller, yelling and screaming, kind of Ox Baker-ish. I stole a lot of stuff from Ox Baker. But basically yelling at him, and they came out and, they gave him his lifetime achievement award trophy or whatever, and it gave me the opportunity to bail out of the ring behind him, and I kind of jumped in from behind and pounded on him for a couple minutes. The first thing that was really awesome to me is Bobo hadn't been on TV in like 20 years, locally. He'd been here on with the Sheiks program back in the day. But I was just amazing how over he was. It was like little kids that were like 10, 12 years old that obviously didn't even remember him. But anyways, he was tremendously over. So I jumped him from behind, and so I was punching and kicking a little bit. But really and helping him get up into the ring itself. So we got him up in the ring, and he's in the corner, and he's like sitting there in the corner, and I go up to him, and I'm like choking him and stuff like this. But really, he's got his hands on the rope, and between his hands on the rope and me choking him, we was able to get him to his feet. And once he got to his feet, he hit me 2 or 3 headbutts, which is a big finishing maneuver for 100 years or whatever it was. And I took the big dump, and he threw the referee aside, and the dressing room emptied out, and they're pulling him off of me, and it's like the place is going crazy. And it was just awesome because Bobo couldn't even move.
So there were no bumps. There's no stiffness to the match. It's just,
No.
it's
I
just.
took the one bump when he hit me with 2 or 3 headbutts, and I fell down, and he shoved the referee, and that was it.
Could he cover you for 1, 2, 3, or he couldn't even do the cover?
Oh, he covered me.
Oh, he did. He got on top.
He laid down. He'd already got disqualified for shoving the referee.
Oh, boy.
But, yeah, so, I mean, me and him sit in the dressing room and laid out this whole thing.
So what happens after the match? You guys are back in the dressing room.
Oh, man, I just went up and thanked him. That was awesome.
Was he in pain?
No, I mean, no, he wasn't in pain. I mean, he's constant pain, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, nothing spectacular from the match.
Did he say, that's it, I'm not going to wrestle again?
No, we didn't really talk about it, you know. He just, I don't think he had planned on wrestling anymore from 2 years prior. And, you know, I think he just came out. I'd like to tell you it was probably because it was a charity thing or because he loved me or whatever, but honestly, I think it was just in his blood. And, you know, he just wanted to get out and go do it that one particular time.
And that was it. He never got back in the ring.
Never got, I talked to him for, you know, a couple of years past that point, and he told me he never wrestled since then. So, as far as I know, that was his very last appearance anywhere.
You were trained by Bull and Fred Curry, right?
Bull and Fred Curry and a local guy that was wrestling for or working for them. Fred had a security business here in Columbus, Ohio at the time, Longford Security, and he had a guy by the name of Bobby Pico, who I had never heard of before, and I doubt anyone listening to this has ever heard of, but Bobby had wrestled for probably 10 or 15 years. So anyway, the three of them together trained me, yeah.
Bull Curry, I've heard a lot of stories about him that he was pretty tough and he could scare people, obviously by his looks. What was he like to deal with one-on-one?
Bull, basically Bobby and Fred did most of the training. I think Bull was living in Connecticut at the time, and you know, we're in Columbus, but he had been in a couple times. And he was really a nice guy, just a great guy, very funny. He, like Bobo, was, you know, he was pretty old at that stage. I'm going to say he was at least into his mid-60s, somewhere in that area. But, you know, he'd still get in there and work out with me for a few minutes. And then, you know, his was more character development than any actual wrestling.
Yeah.
Bull was a character.
Was he crippled up?
He, you know, again, you're talking about a guy in his mid-60s and going through what he had went through physically. I mean, he was moving around all right. He wasn't going to out-wrestle me or anything, if that's what you're asking. But, you know, he's moving around all right for a guy in his mid-60s. And he obviously knew a little bit about actual wrestling. I don't know what his whole background there is, other than he started out in the carnivals way back in the 30s. You know, doing taking on all challengers type gimmicks. So he showed me some shoot stuff that he knew how to do.
Bull, shoot stuff. Have you been in? I know you've been on the independent circuit and you've worked a lot of crazy places. Have you been in? How many shoots have you been in?
You know what? I ran a wrestling school for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of shoots then. Of course, I wrestled all through high school and stuff. So
right.
I went through all that, and but in the wrestling school, you know, when we got done practicing, we'd kind of get together and promote up little matches between ourselves and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've had a few. Not a world caliber.
What do you think of the independent scene today?
It sucks. There's no money in the independents, and honestly, I mean, everyone's blaming Vince McMahon or they're blaming WWE or whatever, and it's like they really need to blame themselves because you got all these kids out there that doesn't want to put in the time or effort to learn their craft to begin with. And, you know, they don't want to put forth $50 to get themselves an outfit. They're wrestling in something that looks like they got at the thrift store. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, they show up in summer clothes, like something you'd see at the beach.
Yeah, something like that. Some of them might be ashamed to wear at the beach.
It's pathetic. It's absolutely,
it's bad.
It's just the death of an industry with one man still standing and still making a fortune. It's amazing, but I don't know how long it's going to last. Some of the other stars, Tommy Rich, you've had involvement with him, right?
I've known Tommy for 20 years, so he's a great guy.
He's still working.
He's still working. I'm going to say we had him in maybe a year ago.
How'd he look? He looked sharp?
Tommy's he's looking rough. He's gained a few pounds. You know, Tommy's in his, I don't know, 50-something. You know, he's looking rough. He needs some dental work. He's not the heartthrob guy that people remember. But you know what? People show up and they still love him. You know, those who remember him from way back in the day. And I'm sure the newer people are looking at him like, I don't understand what this is all about. But, you know, his fan base is really loyal. They show up. Tommy's, he gives them everything he has. as he'll tell you 100,000 times. He's old school. Every time Tommy comes here, he does a 20-minute monologue about old school, which usually the people's filing out of the building for that.
How about Jimmy Valiant?
Jimmy, I haven't worked a whole lot with. Of course, he's not working at all anymore. He's pretty much just a comedy act. I understand people still booking for, commissioner spots or doing the voiceover and stuff like that. Honestly, I mean, I ain't gonna say a whole lot bad about the man. I would kind of question a little bit of his honesty about some things.
Who?
Jimmy Valiant.
Well,
he's always trying to work the promoters, and it's like he'll book himself, and he comes in, he's hurt. Supposedly, he doesn't want to do a whole lot. He's got a list of things. I mean, this is going back a few years because obviously he's not even working anymore. So, I never had a real pleasurable experience with him.
Okay, fair enough. How about the Iron Sheik?
Oh, my God. I can tell you some Iron Sheik stories. I don't know if I can
tell me one.
All right, I'll tell you one time. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Golden Corral or it's like a all-you-can-eat joint. And so the Sheik was in one time. It was like me and my girlfriend at the time and her brother, who was just a huge fan, and his brother's wife. We all went to the Golden Corral. And, Sheik's moving kind of slow. So I pull up in front of the place, going to, just let them get out and then go park the car. So as he's getting out, he goes, "Bull, get my bag out of the back seat or trunk or wherever." And I'm thinking, we're here to eat. Why does he need his bag? But anyways, it's the Sheik, so I get his bag out for him, and I go park the car and come in. By the time I get in, Sheik has 4 or 5 stacks of pictures sitting on the table. And I'm not going to lie to you, it ain't like his table was packed the whole time he was there, but we were there for 2 hours because I like to eat. And the Sheik always had people, 3 or 4 people at the table, and he's in business for himself. So people are coming up and getting the picture they want, and they're telling him his name so he can personally autograph all the pictures. And every time someone comes up and says, "Hey, my name's Bob," and the Sheik looks to I guess you call him my brother-in-law or whatever, but and he would say B-O-B and spell it out for him. The Sheik would write B, and he'd look back over, and my brother would go O. And it's like, so he signed all the autographs, and basically after 2 hours of us eating and stuff, the Sheik made himself like $300 just sitting in the restaurant.
Would he announce that he was going to be there, or he just...
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I mean, he didn't know where we was going. We went in, and, people started recognizing him. Then he cornered one of the waiters or maybe the manager of the place and told him, "I'm the Iron Sheik, former WWE champion," all this stuff, and got himself an announcement made. So, picked up a little bit. So then at the end, after we ate, Sheik got himself a little to-go-home package because he hadn't ate anything. He's signing autographs the whole time. We got out to the parking lot, and I just happened to have those clubs that he used to swing. They were in the trunk of my car.
Right.
So my brother-in-law says, I'd like to try those. So we got him out, and he then did a couple crappy reps. Those things are really, you got to be really strong, but you got to know the technique to do them, too, which us lousy Americans, we don't know how to do that, you know what I mean? So it's like, then the Sheik takes him, and he knocks out about 50 of them. He's not even breaking a sweat, and he's in his 60s by now. But anyways, people are watching this, and next thing you know, he's like, "Get my bag out of the trunk of the car." He's back in business again. I'm going to say he made at least $300, $350 while we was all getting fat.
Wow. Does he still wrestle?
No, he can't wrestle anymore. I mean, I used to bring him in just to do autographs, or sometimes during intermission we'd send him out.
Is he really crippled up?
Yeah, he's pretty bad off.
Well, in what way? I've seen him move around, but what exactly is wrong?
I don't know what exactly is wrong with his legs, if it's his knees or, maybe his hips like Bobo, but he just can't walk too well. The last time I booked him for an actual match, and I'm going to say we're going back 8-9 years, maybe not quite that long. He couldn't hardly walk at that point. I mean, he wrestled, but he couldn't bend over or anything. It was funny. I had him against one of my students, and I forget what the actual outcome was supposed to be, but Sheik didn't like it. So he sucked up really well. He's like, "No one here is going to believe this jabroni could beat me. At least the jabroni could walk." You know what I'm saying? He was so offended. He said, but he sucked up real well. He's like, "Now, if I was wrestling you, Mr. Miller, I'd put you over." People believe that. Yeah. But the Sheik's a great guy. I mean, obviously he has his demons, and they're well documented all over the web. But I could tell you some stuff that you probably don't want to hear.
Like what?
It was like one time a buddy of mine picked him up, and he asked the guy, said, "Take me to the black section of town." And my buddy's like, "Well, why?" And he says, "All right, guy, I can say whatever I need to say on the show, right?"
Well, use code.
He says, "All right, you're good." He used the N-word, all right? he said those N-words, they got all the medicine. He calls it drugs and medicine. They got hard medicine. They got soft medicine.
Yeah.
It just amazes me. I mean, I ain't going to mention this guy's name because he's a pretty big shot in UFC-type competition. He's a former UFC champion. But even he brought the chic medicine at the show.
Medicine is in some other kind
medicine is in something you smoke. Yeah, so I was like, I'm not approving of smoking anything or injecting yourself anything.
Whatever. Yeah,
he's living a charmed life for what he has.
Bull, are a lot of these older guys, it's pretty sad stories usually?
You know what? I'm sure you've seen the movie The Wrestler, and I hated that depiction of that guy because, I mean, me and my buddies were sitting around like, who is that guy? Is that the honky-tonk man or is that Tracy Smothers or whatever? I can't say they're living a very sad life. I mean, obviously, you got guys like the Sheik who apparently didn't save his money and has bad habits. And from last I heard, I don't know this for a fact, but he's divorced, and without his wife, he would be lost because I talked to her just to get him on a plane. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he obviously has problems just because I don't know how he can have a lack of understanding because I think he's been here in the States since the early 70s. But, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of guys just all would never end, and they'd always going to be, 20-something and physically fit and making big money, and, then they find themselves 50-something and not. But a lot of them have moved on, like Demolition Axe. I mean, he's a teacher now. They've prepared themselves for when there wasn't going to be no wrestling, and like guys like Axe, they're still working the indie circuit, making a decent little change on that on top of their real-world money. So I can't say there's a whole lot of them that have turned out tragically now.
What type of attendance are you getting for the local shows?
Oh, they're terrible.
Like what? 500, 1,000, 15?
In a pipe stream. I mean, a lot of times it's like a couple hundred maybe. I've been to shows where there was like 20 paid.
20 paid? How do you finance a show with 20 paid?
Well, I finance my shows because I go out and get sponsors for them. I don't depend on the people to show up.
Oh, I got you.
But a lot of people don't. They're here today, gone tomorrow.
So if you, because we get a lot of people wanting to get into the promotional business who listen to our shows, they contact me, and my advice to them is to find something else to do, but they still insist. So is that what they're looking at? Is 20 people at the shows if they promote one?
Yeah, it's not surprising. People just sometimes forget to show up, and there's nothing you can really do. You can spend a lot of money. I mean, I can give you some figures and stuff on some of my shows that I've done and some miscalculations on my behalf that I've done.
Yeah.
People think, I can give you an idea. We was going to open up Columbus not too long ago. And Columbus is a pretty big city, so I tried to bring in like 3 different names. Someone from TNA for the newer crowd, and someone who's been in WWE in the last 5 years, and someone a legend type guy.
Yeah.
So you're in a little chip of cash to do all that. Fly men, pay them what they want, this, that, and what have you, and then you got to advertise it and all that good crap. And it's like I think all says like there's maybe like $4,000 involved in the show or something like that, 4 or 5. And it's like I think 85 people showed up.
Wow.
And we was all over the TV and bought spots on Raw and this, that, and what have you.
And it's
so
just
like
they totally crapped all over it as far as attendance.
Yeah, it's you just can't. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, other sports, if that's what you want to call it, or forms of entertainment, it's like they kind of honor their people from the past. But it's like now if you're off WWE TV, or even if you're on WWE TV, it's just the fact that you're on, it's the WWE itself that draws. It's not anybody that's there. I mean, just what was a few years ago, and Hogan did his big thing in Memphis there, didn't draw crap.
It's all over, Bull. It's all over.
Well, yeah, the WWE has changed the business in that now it's, I think someone of your guests recently called the Ringling Brothers Circus or something. They hit town 2 or 3 times a year maybe, it's a big town, and they draw not so much whatever the current feud is or whoever the current star is. They draw because they're the WWE. And it ain't like the old days where, I think Ole Anderson said, you had to like really piss the people off, and that made them want to come back next week, and they did. It's like there is no pissing the people off no more.
The people are perpetually pissed off, so you can't. Somebody who's already pissed off, what's the point of pissing them off even more? They already hate the world, so they're not sure as hell not going to hate a wrestler anymore. I think it's on a downward spiral that won't end.
Yeah, I don't think it's not going to end because I think the WWE, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be around. They're still making money. But their business plan is a touring attraction. Unlike the old days, and now what the independents need to do is we got to be able to piss the people off enough that they want to come back next week or next month and watch what's happening.
Good
luck. But the problem is, it's like there's no stars on the independents. I'm
right,
you
got no stars. Who's going to come out to see some 60-year-old?
Yeah.
With a respect to the 60-year-olds, they shouldn't be, in the ring. So.
But the 60-year-olds and the young guys on the independents, they're not going to draw either, no matter how many flippy things they can do or whatever, or even really how good they understand how to work a match, because they're just not stars. There's bands at your local, bar or something is just as good as the Rolling Stones, but people aren't going to show up to see them.
I got
you. Know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's like we've lost the art because we've exposed too much of the business of, and I never really did believe wrestling was real, but I believed in some of the characters. I thought Dick the Bruiser was the toughest son of a gun in the history of the world when I was growing up. But, it's like now the characters have been all exposed and no one believes in it. So as far as drawing people back on a consistent basis, it's just impossible.
It's over.
Yeah, the WWE, I think, is going to survive. Those, like I said, they can survive on star power and who they are. They're like the NFL to some degree.
Well,
so they're always going to draw something.
Well, we got to run. This is during lunch break. I wanted to get you on. You had the last match with Bobo. You had all these great stories, and we will get you on again. I do appreciate it.
Awesome.
Do you have a website?
You can check us out at iwawrestling.com.
iwawrestling.com. Very good.
Yeah.
I'll check it out, and so will the audience.
MySpace and all that stuff, too, and some of the wrestlers, so they can check everybody out.
Okay, I appreciate you coming on. I hope you have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.